All right. Good morning. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? What's going on, Andrew?
Good morning. Good morning.
So we have a topic today on cohabitating and dealing with the money issue that comes up with that. Before we get started, come on over to YouTube. So I got to drop the link to. Oh, the typos are huge this morning. Got to drop the link to the show on YouTube. So if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter or something, just head on over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps us out a ton. That's in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just total debt freedom on YouTube. So I got this article sent to me, Andrew, from The Guardian, which is a British publication. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You lived in England a lot longer than I did.
Yes.
So I'll throw it up on the screen. It's not long. We're going to be talking about understanding some basic concepts about money when it comes to living together as a couple. So I'll throw it up on the screen here. The title of the article, by the way, is "My Boyfriend Wants My Flat Rental Money If I Move In With Him. What Should I Do?" And the subtitle is, "If I'm to pay more than a third of his mortgage, I feel we should talk about my rights to his property." So this is pretty common. Cohabitation's been going on for a long time, since the beginning of time. In fact, it's only recently that we have laws that govern cohabitation, more specifically the untying of the knot, because at some point cohabitation, even if you're not married, is viewed as marriage essentially under common law by the state if you live in most places in the West. Did you get a chance to read the article, Andrew?
I did, yes.
All right, so I'm just going to rip through it for the viewers. Let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger so it pops on the screen a little bit. So Q. So her question to the publication is, in 2017, 6 months after buying my one-bedroom flat, I lost my job, managed to get another one at half my previous salary. I'm still able to pay my mortgage, but my repayments now make up about half of my income. Since 2018, I've been dating a guy who is now planning to buy a 3-bedroom house for him and his 2 children. The house needs to be in a different area from where I live so that the children can be closer to their mom in the catchment area of the school they hope to go to. It's pretty standard. We've been talking about moving in with them. He suggested that I sell my flat, but after talking to a few real estate agents, I decided against selling, as I would have gotten back less than I paid for it. Seems unusual for the UK. I think the housing market over there is pretty hot, isn't it?
It was when we left, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary. My understanding is values of properties are still pretty good out there.
I got a guy in a private entrepreneurs group that does rehabs on properties in London, and he said the market's pretty stellar over there. When was this published? 2021. Okay, this is recent.
And it also depends on where this property is. It could be in London, which is very hot. It could be somewhere up north, which is nowhere near as hot. So it all depends on where this apartment is located.
Yeah, okay, so fair enough. So catchment, we've been talking about moving in with them. He suggested, so he's telling her sell the flat after talking to a few real estate agents, decided against selling it because the value is less than what she paid for it. So now I've decided that if I do move in with my partner, I will rent out my apartment. And even though the potential rental income will not cover my monthly mortgage, which is not ideal, okay? My real problem is that my boyfriend and I can't agree on how to arrange our finances, of course. There's always a disagreement when it comes to money, right? That's like the number one thing that people fight about. And I believe it's either the number one or two things. If not, I think it's the number one thing, if I'm not mistaken, that causes the breakup of most, relationships that would be deemed as either marriage or common law. They basically fall under the same blanket. Anyway, my boyfriend expects me to contribute to the costs of his mortgage. The way that this should be phrased, by the way, in my view, is my boyfriend expects me to contribute to the costs of the household, not the mortgage. It's paying for the household, if that's where you're going to live together. But it's phrased here in her question as to the cost of the mortgage. I agree that it would be unfair for me to live under his house for free, but I don't agree that, as he suggested, I should pay him the rent for my flat after tax. He seems to think that I will get this extra income only as a result of moving in with him. It is to take, even though I need the money to meet most of my mortgage payments. Sorry, it's his take, even though I need the money to meet most of my mortgage payments. So his take is, whatever you're getting in rental income, pay it to me to live under my 3-bedroom house. Her take is, no, I need the money to cover the cost of the mortgage on the flat. So we're at a little bit of an impasse here. So her last paragraph is, I also feel that if I'm to pay more than a third of his mortgage, we should talk about giving me rights to his property. So this is where it starts to get complicated. Of course, pro rata to the amount of my contributions. I'm just going to stop here for a second and just touch on this from a legal perspective. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not qualified to dispense legal advice, obviously, but my experience based on talking to people over a number of years, including family lawyers, is that it is very, very difficult to structure a pro rata right to property based on the amount of contributions, because you may contract outside of family law a certain agreement, but family law will always trump whatever you've contracted outside of family law. You're a licensed legal professional, Andrew. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm not licensed to give legal advice in family law. Only lawyers can do that. I'm a licensed paralegal, but if that's what you've heard, then I'm assuming that is accurate. From what I understand, usually in the process of divorce proceedings or splitting of assets after separation, it's usually a 50-50 split. I don't believe I've ever seen anything other than a 50-50 split on real property. So
Right.
that might have just been the arrangement that both parties have. Maybe they feel it was reasonable that they both split the value of the asset 50-50 because that's what it was. But in this case, she's saying that she wants a third. And I'm not sure if that would stand up in the procedures of separation or not, but she's, I guess, entitled to ask for it or to seek it if that's what she wishes.
Yeah. I mean, you're entitled to ask for whatever you want in life, I suppose. She goes on to say, in response, he argued that if I got rights to his property, he would automatically have rights to my property because I'm earning money on it. Again, a counter argument that seems to make logical sense, but family law may trump that depending on what it says and where you live. I mean, we get viewers from around the world here, Canada, the US, the UK, Australia. I mean, if they speak English, there's somebody that might be watching this. So before you do any kind of cohabitating with a partner, you definitely want to talk to a family lawyer about how the law would apply to the untying of that union, because on a balance of probabilities, it probably will untie at some point. Anyway, thanks to the fact of me living with him, she goes on, I don't think it's right, nor is it fair. What's right and fair are two totally different things, by the way, given that I won't have a room to myself in his house and that I'm facing increased travel costs. All right, what's your hot take on this, Andrew? What would your advice be?
I don't know that obviously the full details of their
don't live together would be the starting point, but anyway, skip that.
I'm on the opposite of that. My point is, if you have the ability to move in with someone, it will reduce your cost of living. Your living expenses will drop if you're living with someone. Essentially, the two people who are cohabiting together would be able to share the expenses of the household, as you've called it. They are household expenses. So if it's rent, if it's mortgage, property tax, utilities, telecommunication, insurance premiums that you've pooled together for the home or for vehicles, whatever it might be, if you're pooling them together, it would be cheaper to cohabitate with someone. So if you're in a situation where it says that she's been dating this individual for 3 years, because it said she's been dating him since 2018, my opinion is it is time that you move in together. That's relationship advice, obviously, but it makes sense to move in together after 3 years. In terms of their finances, it's a tricky question because he's looking to purchase a property. It would just make sense, my point of view, is if they just split the purchase of this property. If they're looking to buy a house for for him and the children, well, obviously, if she's planning on moving into the house, why don't they just co-purchase together? I'm not understanding why they just wouldn't co-purchase the house together.
Well, I can tell you why that would be a bad idea to start out with. I mean, first of all, they've never lived together. He's got 2 children from another woman living with him, which he obviously has, a priority interest in making sure that they're happy and content and everything goes well. And it just may not work out. So
it's been 3 years though. Like if we look at it on the surface, it's been a 3-year relationship where yes,
dating is very different from living together.
When
you live together, the dynamics do change. So buying a house, together might make logical sense at first, and it would be the simplest way to do it. She sells her property, she takes the cash from the sale of that property, regardless of whether the value is higher or lower. Just get rid of it. If she's so committed to him, then take that money, pile it in with his money. Obviously, they should have something pretty similar if that's what they're planning to do. Like if he's putting in $100,000 and she's putting in $100,000, then go buy that property together. that would be the logical way to do it. But I think that you have to take a cautious approach to it, because on a balance of probabilities, most long-term relationships don't last longer than about 7 years. And if you have to untie that knot, if you're cohabitating, I mean, you've commingled your assets, it could be quite problematic. But to the point of she wants to do this, like they want to live together, you think the best way to structure it is to just buy a place together?
Well, yeah, they've been together long enough, in my opinion. I don't know their details of their relationship, but when you're in a relationship for 3 years, you essentially are living with each other. Like, I am assuming that they are spending a vast majority of their time together in one of the other person's properties. So they are essentially already living together. All this would do is officially tie the knot in that regard. They own property together. They live in the same house. They split the expenses of the property 50-50. She can keep her property on the side if she wants to. That's, it's her prerogative. It's her, if she has the financial ability to sustain that, then so be it. But it doesn't make any sense why she would not want to go in on the purchase of the second property as a co-owner.
I'm assuming that she doesn't have the financial resources. Otherwise, that conversation would have been a part of it.
Again, we don't know. We don't know. Like I said, I don't know any full details here, but I'm just saying it would make sense if she's moving into the house. It just doesn't make sense for them not to discuss just splitting the purchase of the property, splitting the costs of the expenses for the property, which includes the mortgage, the property taxes, the utilities, and everything that comes with it. Obviously, because he's got the children that join him, I'm assuming on a regular basis, a couple times a week or every other weekend or whatever it might be, the cost of groceries will be a little higher on his part. So maybe they should have an arrangement where he pays more for the groceries because he'll be feeding the children. They're his children. But in terms of living expenses, I see no reason why they can't just buy it together and split the cost.
I'm going to spend some more time on this on a different broadcast, because the advice that she's getting back on this is ditch him, do things on your terms, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip that for the time being, but my advice on this, the way it's framed and worded, is you keep your place, you collect your rent on it. I don't care what that is. It doesn't matter what your mortgage payment is. What's yours is yours. He buys his place. It's in his name. You have a cohabitation agreement signed where you're paying an agreed upon amount of rent towards the property. And the cohabitation agreement covers everything, including what would happen if the relationship would break apart. That would be the intelligent way to approach it, and just see how that goes. And then, you can take it from there and make some changes along the way. But like, you can't have rights to his property and not give him rights to your properties. And the more that you intermingle finances in this type of maneuver, the more complicated things become. And also the more complicated things become if and when you need to untie the knot. You have to understand, once you live with somebody else, you're inviting the state into your household. Okay. Family law or some version of family law, depending on where you live, whatever it is that they're going to call it, is going to apply to govern the untying or the breakup of that relationship. And generally speaking, more often than not, you don't want to lose sovereignty in that sense. So keeping it simple, consulting with a family lawyer, let her keep her stuff, you keep your stuff, put it in your name. Ms. keeps it in her stuff, in her name, and she just pays whatever the agreed upon rent amount is to it. End of story. I have a cast. Sorry, go ahead.
It also helps with capital gains. We haven't touched on that yet, but if they were to live together and get married at some point in the future, if one property was in her name, one property is in his name, they wouldn't be hit for capital gains on a sale of one of the properties.
Technically they would have rights to the appreciation of the capital in both of those properties individually.
As primary residence. That's what it is here in Canada. Obviously, we can't speak of what laws are in different countries around the world. But in that example, you could take advantage of, the one property in her name, the one property in his name. If they decide to sell one of the properties, they're not paying taxes on the capital gains of the increased equity in the value. So that does make sense. It is a lot more simpler to do the arrangement where you suggested, is just arrange a rental agreement. So if she's moving into the house and she's paying, let's just assume it's $800. She's paying $800 towards him for rents. There's an agreement in place. The $800 he collects is just contributed towards whatever expenses he wants to contribute them towards. That is the most simplistic way to do it, for sure. That is, it can get quite complicated if you start talking about assets and moving in and putting names on assets and titles of property and all that type of stuff.
And I have another cast later on today at 11:30 on my other channel at Entrepreneurs in Cars. We're talking actually about relationships and money in depth. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on the response to this in that video. Andrew, we have a debt relief company. If you have more than $15,000 of credit card debt, tell them where to find you and what you guys do.
Well, you can find me in the office Monday through Fridays, but obviously due to COVID restrictions, we don't allow any walk-ins at this point in time, clients or thereof. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, there is a website you can see, totaldebtfreedom.ca. You can visit us at that website. You can schedule a call with our office. Well, you can book a consultation and then schedule a call with our office. We highly recommend that when you're entering in your details for a call, you also book a call around your schedule and our schedule so that we can coordinate a consultation together. Those consultations don't take too much time. The first one might take 15 to 20 minutes to see if you're a good fit for the program. If you are, we'll see what we can do. If you are not, we will direct you into the correct path that would be best for your interests. And we'll see what we can do about eliminating your debt in a time frame of anywhere between 3 and 5 years.
So it's straightforward, guys. If you owe more than 15 grand of credit card debt and what you're doing ain't working, meaning you've been doing it for 6, 8, 12 months and you're not seeing the balances come down, you can legally reduce it by 50 to 70%, get out of debt in a pretty quick period of time while doing a lot less damage to your credit than you would with other programs out there. So totaldebtfreedom.ca is a place to go. It has to be Canadian debt, has to be over 15 grand, and you have to be struggling to getting it paid off. Go check that out. We'll see you guys next Saturday. In the comments below, let us know how you enjoyed watching today's show. If you have an article you might want us to hit on or offer an opinion, just drop it in. Actually, I don't think you can drop links in the comments below. So maybe the best way to send it is send it to CEO@totaldebtfreedom.ca, and I'll have my assistant filter for it and take a look at it. Thanks for watching today's show. Andrew, we're on for next Saturday, 9 a.m., yeah?
Correct.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Have a good day.
Take care.